great responsibility.
Let me do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole! That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself!
Capital hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so this is a partial beginning of our podcast. Welcome, Jay, Scott.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We are here.
This is the beginning of our live stream. So for all of you guys out there, you're behind the scenes. Are we on Facebook right now, Eric?
We are live.
Let me go there. So this is the pregame, guys. Whoever's there, that means you're good friends of all of ours. We love you. I'm about to do a watch party, Jay. Are you going to do a watch party?
Yes. If I just need to figure out how to do this, I'm not. I'm not technologically savvy like you guys.
So let's think. We're going to teach everybody in real time because I actually don't know how to do it either. I think you hit share. You hit share.
Okay.
There you go.
To your page, and then it'll say share as a watch party, I believe. Correct? Eric, is that right?
You
Share
can do
in
that,
a group. Share in a group. Watch together.
You can do share to your own self, or you can share to a group. It's pretty sweet that way.
Yeah, yeah. We got people jumping in. So yeah, let's start this. Let's kick it off with the man, the myth, the legend. Right? Let's do it, Josh.
Well, Eric, here's what I'm thinking. This is the pre-roll. It's like live pre-roll.
Live pre-roll.
So like right now, it's inside baseball, as you always say, Eric. This will be saved for posterity. But live and watched the great Jay Scott. So that's me writing on my page for all of you guys out there. But we haven't even started the actual hardcore iTunes style podcast. That'll start in about a minute. How about that? Okay,
I like it. I like it.
But you and I love talking inside baseball, right, Eric?
Yeah.
And we have the world famous Jay Scott here. So, Jay, we want to share with you what we're thinking is going to be of tremendous value to Capital Hacking audience live as a pre-roll to the show. And by the way, you're going to love this. Dave Van Horn and some other good friends that they said they are going to do watch parties of you right now, too. So,
Awesome. And I see Justin Frazier just joined. How's it going, Justin?
Yeah.
let me see here. I sent this out this morning. Okay. We are live. All right, Eric, you send it to. You're on your page. Now, the only other thing I didn't do is I'll have to do it while we're doing this. This is so real, guys. Whoever's watching this now, this is real internet marketing, real internet content. So Jay is, you can see over my head in the pre-roll here, all the different works and thought that Jay has put out there for the medium of the ether. The one that I'm a big fan of right now is business. It's called Bigger Pockets Business, and we're going to get into that. But Jay, if you don't mind, during this show, I'd like to highlight a salient point of each of your books.
Sure.
Not just because it's incredibly good promotion for you in Bigger Pockets, which we are huge fans of, but because I think it'll be a great salient way to show how much of a teacher you are. All right. And then, of course, Eric, are you going to hit it hard on the origin story?
I love Jay's story, but yeah, I think the rest of the audience needs to hear it and be inspired by it. But
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
And are you going to tease out, Eric? I'll let you tease out one of the gems, which is the World Series of Poker.
Oh,
I'll let
I know
you.
what
Dude, it's an awesome story. He'll probably touch it, but I'll let you tease it out.
Yeah.
And how about we do a countdown to the live podcast version now? You ready?
Sure. Hey, guys, if you missed the intro, let's just play it again for you folks. Sorry, Jay, you're gonna have to.
Okay.
No problem.
3, 2, 1. Here comes.
3, 2, 1. Here it comes for those because this is the official live and the podcast. Let's do it.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Let me do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole! That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself!
Capital hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
To Capital Hacking, this is your grateful host, Josh McCown, the illustrious Eric Cabral, illustrious Eric Cabral. And today, without even building up to it, we're going to jump right into our colleague today is Jay Scott. Nobody on the show needs to describe who he is, but we're going to do it anyway because all of our listeners know the world famous thought leader from Bigger Pockets. And we just want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being here, Jay.
Wow, that was quite the world famous thought leader.
Well,
I hope my wife's not listening to this because she is just laughing her butt off right now.
Good. I'm glad
Doesn't
she's
she
not
know?
listening because she's the only one that probably shouldn't be listening because you are clearly also a great salesman because you have a fantastic wife. So congratulations to you.
I'm batting above my level, as they say. Whatever the quote there
Aren't
is.
we all? Aren't we all?
Yeah. Although, let me tell you something, Josh, I don't know if people out there know this. I'm sure you talked about it, but you just had baby number 10. So your wife is the bravest, most bravest woman I've ever heard of. It's amazing. Not because of you, but that's just.
Dude, you got to meet her
Congratulations
briefly.
again.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Isn't she special? I mean, she's a
She's
tough
awesome.
lady. She's doing a great job with us now. By the way, she's working now in our capital group. I'm so proud of her and designing and all kinds of wonderful things. We'll get to her to meet Carol someday. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, we did. We just had baby number 10. We told a story about it on another show, right, Eric?
Yeah. It's it. Come on. Who doesn't
It's
want
the
to hear about
coolest.
the 10th baby?
It's the
You know?
coolest. But no. Hey, I want to get into this, man. We have so much content, right, Eric?
Yes. We have so much love to pour out to the audience because Jay, and internally here, because we love and admire Jay for many years. He was integral to my personal growth as a real estate investor and Josh as well. So yeah, we're just so happy and proud and honored for you to be here, brother.
I'm thrilled to be here. I love you guys, and I really appreciate you having me.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, Eric, you always have this great way of beginning shows.
Yeah, and inspired by BP and Bigger Pockets.
Oh,
But
that's a
yeah,
good
brother,
point.
let's do it in any salient or long form way. We're gonna let you take the mic, brother, because I think your story is super inspiring. And it involves your family and your wife and how all of it sort of happened for you. What was that entrepreneurial bug that sort of bit you and got everything rolling?
Yeah. So with me, my whole life, and I know other people have talked about this, but I think I don't know how to put this into a lesson. But one of the things that's kind of been a recurring theme in my life is just serendipity, just kind of being in the right place at the right time, and just kind of. I don't want to say getting lucky, but setting myself up to get lucky. Just I don't know. Some people say being prepared or just kind of being all over the place. And so that's very much the case with real estate as well. 2006, I met my wife. We happened to be working in the same company. We were back in California working at eBay together. We worked together for a little while. She refused to date me because we worked together. So I quit my job. So she'd go out with me. She said. Then I found out she didn't really want to date me, but after I quit my job, she felt guilty and felt like she had to. 2 years later, we decided to get married. She was working like ridiculous hours. She was traveling like 3.5 weeks a month. I was traveling a week or two a month. So we never saw each other, which is probably why she fell in love with me. She didn't get to know me. And so 2008, we decided to get married. We realized that lifestyle just wasn't conducive to having a family. We both really wanted a family. We wanted to be able to raise our kids. So we said, we're quitting our jobs. We're going to go figure out something else. We're going to do what at the time people were referring to as a lifestyle business, basically just kind of a business that we could kind of put business first family first and business kind of second. We had no idea what that business was going to be. We quit our jobs. We moved back to the East Coast. This was May of 2008. The real estate market had gotten crushed. I mean, worst real estate market in history. We were sitting on the couch that summer trying to figure out what business are we going to start. This was not a good time to be starting a business, but we really needed to figure something out, or we wanted to figure something out. And as we're watching TV, like an HGTV show comes on TV, and just like every HGTV show back in 2008, it was all about flipping houses. So my wife said, why don't we do that? I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, we don't have any other business ideas right now. The wedding's coming up in a couple months. We're just sitting here watching TV. I want to flip a house. I like designing houses and stuff. And so anybody that knows me knows that that's kind of ludicrous. I barely can change a light bulb. But this was the woman that I was still trying to convince to marry me 2 months later. So anything she wanted. So I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's go flip a house. jumped on the internet. I found Bigger Pockets. I started reading. I started studying. We started looking at houses. We looked at literally about 100 houses. Finally, my wife, who always makes the good decisions in my household, said, this is ridiculous. We've looked at like 100 houses. You refuse to take action on any of these. Whatever the next house we see is, we're going to buy it. 2 days later, we went out and a wholesaler showed us 3 houses. True to form, she said, we're buying those 3 houses. We literally put 3 houses under contract.
Amazing.
We bought the first one the day of our wedding. And then we bought the next 2 over the next couple weeks. And that's kind of how this started. It was just supposed to be flip one house to give us something to do. Before we knew it, we had those 3, we had 4, 5, 10, 50. And we just, a few years later, we looked back and we said, I guess this is the business that we're planning to start.
No, wait. I love how you say from 10 to 50. No one's ever done that. I mean, you are one of the 5 people that I know of in my life. And then you say 100. You throw 100 in there. I love that. I also just want to compliment you on, forgive me for interrupting you, the fact that you're making a transition in life and you sought out education. In that case, it was Bigger Pockets. But I know there's more to that story, so I don't want to interrupt you. So that's incredible you took action like that.
Yeah, no, that's and I'll tell you the luckiest thing for us is that we bought those first 3 houses kind of all at the same time, because that first one didn't go well. And literally had we bought the first and said, let's see how this goes, and then we'll decide if we want to do more, we never would have bought number 2. We never would have bought number 3. It was 2.5 years before we sold that first flip. But luckily number 2 and 3 went better. So it encouraged us to keep going.
Well, that's incredible.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to highlight that I've heard your story and I've heard this before, and I wanted to highlight it here, that Carol was basically watching all these flipping, right? All these sexy, romantic sort of flipping shows, as we all were during that crazy era of like that was all the rage of just let's watch all this and not necessarily take action. And what was cool is she actually said, dude, let's do this. And you were kind of not like, you were kind of on the fence about it. And it's crazy. Like Carol was really the impetus to starting that whole trajectory for you guys. And I just want to highlight too how profound it was for me to read your books, because it was very, everybody, we all went down the same path, right? The purple pill, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, getting inspired, but it was not tactical. What were the step-by-step actions that I need to take? And then I found your book, which introduced me to Bigger Pockets, because Bigger Pockets podcast was sort of the same inspirational things, hearing ideas and concepts that other people implemented, but not necessarily telling me how to do it. But your book, I would literally carry it, dude, on potential flips, and I would go through the pages and go, "Is this where did Jay say here?" So I think, and I want to highlight to you guys and Carol especially that I feel like you guys planted the seed and germinated the whole movement of not just DIYers, but actual people who took your books and really found the confidence to say, okay, here it is step by step, checkbox by checkbox. And you started that movement of actual doers, like the do generation who like took Bigger Pockets and said, thank you for this. And then didn't you basically help to launch the publishing aspect of it?
Yeah. First of all, thank you. I really appreciate that. Part of that is personality. Part of that was a little bit of it was planned. When I wrote the books, back in 2008, I started a blog when we decided to start flipping houses. Actually, before we decided to start flipping houses, I was going to do multifamily investing. And I started this blog to talk about like buying apartment buildings. And so basically it was just detailing every day I was learning something. Every day I would like just post information about what I was learning. I created the business plan literally on this website. My business plan was created day by day by day. I just post out different pieces of it. And so it's like I crowdsourced the name of my first company. And so it was very much like this website was an extension of me out there starting a real estate business, and it gained a lot of traction. It got really popular, and I started getting a ton of questions about flipping houses. Everybody wanted to talk about flipping houses by like 2011, 2012, and I was like, I hate to say I was the first, because I feel like there's so many people out there that came before me that did amazing stuff, but I think I was one of the first that was willing to basically go and put every last detail of my flips out there to the penny. Like if we lost money, I was talking about all the mistakes we made. If we made money, I was putting the numbers out there. There was nothing hidden. It wasn't an HGTV show. It was real life. And so people love that. And people started asking me questions, and I got overwhelmed with the number of people that wanted to talk on the phone, wanted to do email, that wanted to take me to lunch. I'm an introvert. And it may not come through, but if you know me, I'm a tremendous introvert. And so Carol said, look, go write it all down. I'm like, well, it's all on the blog. They can go read it. She's like, yeah, but it's not organized well. Go write it in a nice, organized fashion. And anybody that asks you a question, just tell them, here, go buy the book and read the book. So I decided to write the books purely selfish reasons. I was sick of talking to people. I was sick of answering questions, and I just wanted to put it out there so people would leave me alone. And so I sat down, I started writing this book, and I wanted to just tell people to go read another book or find some other book, but I couldn't find a book. Most of the books were like stories and anecdotes and motivation. I'm not a motivational writer. I'm not a motivational person. I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer by trade. I'm an engineer by education. I'm an engineer by mindset. So when I wrote this book, I said, I'm literally going to sit down and I'm going to write a blueprint for flipping houses. And the book ended up being 20 chapters, and each chapter is a step in the process. And you get to chapter 2, which is find your financing. Then you look at chapter 3, which is find your real estate agent. Chapter 4, figure out your farm area. Chapter 5, figure out what type of deal you're going to buy. Chapter 6, analyze deals. And it's basically step by step by step. And so it ended up being, I think, a pretty good book. The interesting thing was chapter, I don't remember, it was like 12 or 13 or 14, was all about estimating rehab costs. And so I sit down, I start writing that chapter. Before I knew it, that chapter was like 300 pages. And so I had the 600-page book where 300 of them was one chapter. So I said, no, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, great. That's a separate book. So now that's the book on estimating rehab costs. So here I am. Incredible. I've got 2 books. Took me about 2 years to write because I wasn't that motivated. And I didn't know what to do with them at that point. So I'm talking to Josh Dorkin. He's the founder of Bigger Pockets. And I mentioned, hey, I've got these 2 books. Do you want to like give them away at Bigger Pockets as like a promotion thing? Or maybe do you want to sell them through Bigger Pockets? And he's like, I don't know. And so a couple days later, he called me. He said, well, tell me what you're thinking with the books. And I said, well, like publishing could be a great thing for you. I mean, a lot of people are into real estate these days. Like, why don't you sell these books? And then I can write some more for you. I can write some more and if whatever. And he said, okay, let's give it a try. And that was the start of Bigger Pockets Publishing. Wow. And I think they've got like 30 of like the top real estate books right now. They've sold 10 million books or something. It's crazy.
My gosh. Yeah. Well, there's just, okay. So I'm going to go back and talk about a little bit about one of the main reasons that we think you would be so valuable to our new audience, our young audience. We're a century of shows into this though. Right, Eric?
Yeah. Nice. Century.
Oh, God bless America. So we have over 100 shows, and what we've learned, but by the way, Eric, did you just change the view?
Yeah, I'm doing that for you, my friend.
Oh, no, don't do that, because I like looking at Jay. He's so good looking.
We'll just show people
I
who
don't
you
like
are.
I don't like looking at my
For those of you on podcast are driving down the highway in your fancy Teslas, you're like, what the hell view is he talking about?
All right.
Oh, yes, I look like I haven't gotten a haircut in 6 weeks. You know why? Because I haven't gotten a haircut in 6 weeks.
Thank
Josh,
you,
you were literally one of the last people I saw before I went into quarantine.
Well, wasn't okay. Well, then, since you're going to go there, we're going to go back to my question in a minute. So you are right. You and I agree. That was the last public appearance. Then we had a baby the next day or so, but you were with us at the beautiful resort, the Renault, where we do for a living, where we raise capital and buy resorts and things. So you graced us with your presence. You and Matt Faircloth did this incredible mastermind, and we were so grateful to have you. And you were the last group I ever saw since quarantine. So it's amazing what happened. I remember you were opining, and you were right about so many things when you were opining there before we knew where this was going to go. But
yeah, I remember you and I, like, we were at dinner at Renault and talking about like the stock market dropping 1,000 points, like the first time it happened. There was the very beginning of this.
Yeah. And by the way, thank you for teaching me poker. Now, Eric didn't bring this out in your bio, but I've been playing poker ridiculously bad once every 3 years since I was young. And you were generous enough during that mastermind. One of the breakouts was you actually taught poker, and you taught it
Awesome.
as a World Series of Poker veteran, by the way, everybody who hasn't known that.
Yeah.
And there's even a video, I'm sure he'll share it at some point on his social media, about him on ESPN playing World Series of Poker. Have you seen that, Eric?
No, I haven't. Was there anyone
real.
next to you? It was like Phil Hellmuth
Oh.
or Phil Ivey?
For
somebody
him?
next-
Oh, yeah, for you.
Yeah,
Were
yeah.
you next to any famous poker guys?
Who was at the table? No, there was nobody. There was one guy from Europe who was like considered the single best limit hold'em player in history. And the guy that ended up beating me ended up going on to win 3 bracelets.
Wow.
So he was also the youngest World Series of Poker bracelet winner in history. So
This sounds like a special episode of Capital Hacking where we talk about the World Series of Poker and the experiences, because I'm sure you have it in your head, like the play-by-play, especially in rounders when everybody who plays Johnny Chen wants the story to be able to tell, so they all try to get one on him. Any moments like that?
Honestly, we played over 3 days. It was something like 50 hours, and mine was the longest World Series final table in history. Like literally didn't end until 3 in the morning. Started at noon, didn't end until 3 in the morning. So I don't remember much from it.
What event was that?
It was a $1,500 limit hold'em event, 2005.
Oh, I remember that.
You remember?
I know. I didn't play it, but I remember it was one of the lower buy-ins. I was like, oh, I could pay
No,
for that one.
he's probably serious, Jay, because we've had other shows where he's talked about poker.
I love it.
He loves World Series poker.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed the whole Renault poker game. I heard
You dirty dog. You
my
should have
dude
been
Jake
there.
won. Yeah,
Yeah, one of your teammates won. You're right.
that's
Eric.
very cool.
But no, but you know what was even nice was Jay didn't join the tournament. He taught rookies, and there was about half of us were rookies. Now, the
wasn't
other,
fair, huh?
so I am one of his students now, you could say, and so was the great Hobbit. Correct? Wasn't
Hobbit.
the Hobbit? Who else did you teach? Elijah
Yes.
Woods. Elijah Wood? Or,
James. You're talking about James Woods.
James Woods.
James
Is he
Woods.
not the Hobbit or no?
No, he was not the
No.
Hobbit.
Oh, what the hell is my deal? So
I was like, what happened at Renault?
I'm like,
It was-
Elijah. Who's
Who's
Elijah
Okay,
Wood.
so the famous person you taught was James Wood.
James Woods.
James
He's
Woods.
the actor James Woods. Yeah.
God, you
we
corrected
played a lot back in 2004, 2005, and he asked me to give him some lessons. So
Oh wow, that's
many
funny
good-
because he is one of those celebrities that they highlighted during the poker craze. So
Yeah.
that's interesting to know that you
See?
really taught him.
I told you were going to be excied to have
Yeah, I
Jay
didn't
on
know
here,
that. Oh,
and
wow.
you didn't even want to have Jay on the show.
I was like, oh, this Jay Scott. What are we having this guy on for?
So Jay, let's wrap some couple things about what you teach our audience, and we appreciate it. When we started this show, we said, what if we could like kind of be a bolt-on to Bigger Pockets someday, where the community, as they matriculate through their different investment opportunities, ours is a little more broad than just real estate. And then you went and created business. So you are operating as the host and leading a great community called Bigger Pockets Business Podcast. And go ahead. I'm so sorry. I just would love to hear a little more.
I
about
was just
that.
gonna say it was long overdue.
It was.
And I'm always interested in the origin. So how did it come about? Was it your idea?
Yes. So I mentioned that like I can barely change a light bulb. I am not a real estate guy. In fact, I hate to say this because people always yell at me when I say this on their shows. I hate real estate.
Stop.
Like, really, I hate real estate. But I love the business of real estate. I love the business of business. I love any business. I love treating any investing activity or any transactional activity as a business. So while I hate actually like flipping houses, being the guy that's managing contractors, I don't go to my flips anymore. Like I've stopped doing that years ago. I manage the business, and I've always loved the fact part of the reason I think I've been successful in real estate is that I treat everything like a business because I'm not smart enough to insert myself in the day to day. I'm not smart enough to manage contractors. I'm not smart enough to know if they're doing the right things or the wrong things. I'm not smart enough to create the schedules. But I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to do those things. So I hire people and I manage people, and I focus on the stuff that I am good at. I like to say I focus on the stuff that generates $500 or $1,000 an hour, not the stuff that generates $10 or $15 or $20 an hour, like painting walls. So I'm focused on finding deals. I'm focused on raising money. I'm focused on underwriting, the stuff that's really important. And so I've always been a business guy. I love business. I've started several businesses back in the corporate world. I manage businesses for a couple of Fortune 500 companies. So to me, it's always been the business piece of real estate or anything I do that's more interesting than the nuts and bolts of real estate. So a couple of years ago, Bigger Pockets came to me and said, we want to start another podcast. And we talked about flipping houses. And I was just like, I can't do it. I've been talking about flipping houses for a decade. And I feel like I've said everything there is to say, or at least everything I know. So I just couldn't do flipping houses. I couldn't, there are a million podcasts out there specifically about flipping houses. And like, that's not for me. And they said, well, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, I have no idea. And 6 months later, they came back and they said, hey, how about flipping houses? No. Well, what do you want to talk about? I have no idea. 6 months after that, they came back. And at that point, my wife said, I feel like doing a podcast. So you need to say yes, and you need to tell them to have me on with you.
Ooh,
I was like,
I like it.
I was like, okay. So I said that, and they said, great, we'd love to have you and Carol. What do you want to talk about? And I had no idea. And I thought about it for 2 seconds. I said, how about business? Let's do something a little different. Let's do business. And they're like, okay, we'll give it a shot. Yeah. And so we went in kind of with the goal of, I mean, we're real estate investors. All of us are real estate investors. As real estate investors, we're business people. And again, if you're good at business, if you're good at managing a business, running a business, scaling a business, you're going to be better at real estate than if you're not good at that. So what I like to say is it doesn't matter if you're a real estate investor or you're another type of business owner, understanding business, understanding how to scale a business, understanding how to optimize a business makes the difference between success and success. Mm-hmm. So I was really excited about this. We've done the show. We just hit our 1 year anniversary for the show. We just did episode 53 this week. And
congratulations, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. And we've had small business owners that like literally just started their business last week, up through some of the biggest names in the industry and everything in between. It has been so much fun, and I've learned a ton from our guests. I have started 2 businesses since we started the podcast. I've bought a business since we started the podcast. So I'm kind of like trying to live what I preach.
By the way, you just tapped into one of the things Eric and we've been to seminars this year on that. It's about the future of buying businesses. So we'll have to do a deep dive on that in another show if you wouldn't mind, because that whole idea, we actually spent 3 days in a mastermind on like a critical step-by-step of how to finance it, how to negotiate it, blah, blah, blah. So Eric and I, we want to have that skill set because we see all of our activities as businesses. Yep. And we named this one Capital Hacking as a thought, a way to get out there and do some content marketing, but also a way to learn. I always said I was watching and listening to the great podcasts. In our space was Real Estate Guys Radio. Became very good friends or close with those guys. Went to all their stuff, and then I found Bigger Pockets much later, actually. And then I just loved the humanization that you guys have always done. Like, it always felt so real. Yep. The dialogue, the Josh Dworkin ethos of no hype. Yep. And authentic and no big gouging prices for anything. That ethos, how important was that to you when you found Big Pockets? And how did I describe it okay? Is there some better way to describe it?
Oh, yeah. No. Josh and I are friends. And so back when I got big in their community, 2009, 2010, we kind of started chatting. And I like to say that in some ways I was an advisor to him in the formative days. And that was always like, honestly, I'm a no hype guy. I'm not a salesman. I don't like selling my stuff. I don't like selling other people's stuff. And so for me, it was easy to kind of buy into that whole idea of Bigger Pockets. We're not gurus. We're not selling guru stuff. We're not selling hype. We're not selling high priced education. But honestly, when Josh was doing this, when we were talking about this 2010, 11, 12, as he was increasing his audience, number of members went from like 25,000 to 500,000 or something. Like, I was the first to say to him, hey, dude, you need to figure out how to monetize this.
Yeah, he needs to run it like a business.
Yeah, and he said to me, nope. That's not what this is about. We'll figure out a way to monetize it. And he was. I mean, he was serving ads, and eventually he started the publishing company. But I was thinking, like, this is your opportunity to like kind of make a lot of money quickly. And his whole attitude was, no, this is a business. And reputation is more important than anything else we do. And that's always been a big thing with me. Reputation's important. So I basically said, you're right. And he built this thing to 2.5 million members. And
no way. That's what it is right now?
Yeah, something like 2.5 million. And he sold off part of the company last year. And so he did it right. And
he really did.
He didn't compromise.
And Eric and I, we've not had him on the show yet, though we will eventually ask him, because we felt like we wanted to get to know you guys before we ask you guys to be on the show, because we've loved you guys for a while. But Josh Dorkin deserves a lot of credit. Not only was it his business and his idea, but he has stayed true to his original mission, like through the entire thing, to the point where he'll say he gave up low-hanging fruit opportunities for cash in order to build the right culture.
Well, I'll tell you what's funny. The first time I ever heard about you, Josh, was through Josh Dorkin. So Josh called me up one day, and he's like, "Do you know Josh McCallum?" I was like, "I don't." And he said, "Josh is doing this really cool deal in New Jersey for a winery called Renault." And I'm looking at the prospectus, and like he wasn't ready to invest because he had just sold the business. He was still dealing with his daughter, but he was like getting to the point where he had never invested in other people's deals. And he's like, I want to kind of, I like this deal. I don't know if I'm ready to invest in anything right now. But I want to get accustomed to looking at these deals and working through them. Would you sit down with me and kind of talk through this deal? So he sent me your prospectus, and he and I just kind of worked through it. And I didn't know you at the time.
Whoa!
And
awesome.
so the first time I heard of you was Josh Dorkin basically sending me the Renault deal and saying, hey, what do you think of this? Help me underwrite it so I understand how the numbers work in these types of deals. And then here it was a year and a half later. I was hanging out with you at the winery, and here we are talking about Josh.
And didn't it come? It's coming along nicely. It's
it's gorgeous.
It's so
oh my God, I love it.
Eric was there from the very early days before we owned it. So before acquisition, and yeah, man, you remember it's we could do a whole show on that. The vision there was shocking. And,
it was unbelievable what's happened. Well, remembering what it was with the big old moldy wine
it was bad. It was
barrels as steps. Anyway, I wanted to highlight that's the second time I've heard that the two Joshes were mixed up, because
well, not mixed up, but just connected.
Well, connected because I joined Go Abundance, Jay, and I'm connected through McCallum, and they thought I was connected through Dorkin. So they're going to Dorkin going, Eric this, Eric that. And he's like, I didn't bring Eric in. What are you talking about? So the people keep mixing it. There's too many Joshes of this generation. It's such a common name.
But by the way, one cool thing about Mr. Dorkin too, I don't know how I found this, but he also was he has another secret life. He was on Saturday Night Live as a stand-in at least once or twice, right?
I didn't know that.
Back me up on this, Jay.
Yeah, he did one. Was it Brad Pitt that was in front of him?
It was a cool scene that you may even remember, Eric. He was one of the guys doing the scene behind.
I gotta find it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it's pretty cool.
Hey, I need to take one quick second here, because I talked about my origin story, and I just noticed in the comments there's a comment by Mike Tomasetti saying hello. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. I try and do this every chance I can get. So Mike is part of my origin story. Mike and his wife Brennan are part of my origin story. If it weren't for the two of them, we likely never would have done a single deal. I met his wife on another forum back in 2008 when I was looking at real estate, and they were in Jacksonville. My wife and I were in Atlanta, and I start talking to her on this website, and I'm asking questions, and she's like, we own a ton of property down in Jacksonville. Come down and visit us and let us just show you around and answer any questions. Literally, I didn't even know her. Like, we just texted a few times. She was so nice. We went down there for the day. They hosted us all day, like looking at properties, answering questions. Literally, we drove back like 5-hour drive the next day, and Carol's like, we can do this. This is what we're going to do. And so Mike's on here. So I don't see Mike that often, but I just want to say thanks to Mike, because if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Mike's a cool cat. He's up here in Philly now, I believe.
Yeah,
that's the Mike
is.
I know from GoBundance up here. So,
yeah, he is.
Hey, Jay, I mean, you can tell us anything you want because we're just students, but I want to just transition a little more back into what I watched you do at that mastermind you and Matt Faircloth ran. Is you're a master teacher, and it's mostly from the heart, from anything from teaching poker to guys like us, all the way through the economy. You have well thought out opinions about what happens when you infuse trillions of dollars into the economy. So we could ask you any question, probably, and you would have some reasoned response. But before we ask you about the economy, would you please teach us the secret to negotiating? Because when I saw your book resume, I was like, dang, dude, it takes guts to write a book on negotiating, because that's a lot of confidence you must have here to write the book on negotiating. And I'm sure you have a lot to share. Is there something you could share from that book, Negotiating Real Estate Deals, that our audience could benefit from?
Yeah. So first of all, I have to give credit where credit's due. So Carol was instrumental in writing that book. And we also partnered with Mark Ferguson, Invest for More, who's out in Colorado. And the three of us wrote that book together. And Carol is by far the best negotiator I know. So I think I might have done a lot of the writing, but the brilliance of that book mostly came from Carol. The best negotiating tip that I can give, and this isn't novel or anything, but the best negotiating tip I can give is that negotiation is all about relationships, and it's all about building trust between you and the other party. Because at the end of the day, you can be the hardest nosed negotiator out there. You can be the guy that everybody's scared to walk into a room with, but that's not going to get you the deal. What's going to get you the deal is walking in and somebody saying, I want to do a deal with that person. I like them and I trust them. And if you can do that, people are going to give. I mean, keep in mind, this is I don't mean this to come off the wrong way. I get asked to do 1 million of these podcasts these days. Like literally everybody wants me to do these podcasts. I wish I could do every single one of them. I literally have to say no to like 80% of them just because I have businesses to run. I have time to do stuff. You guys asked me to come on, and let me tell you something. It took about 2 seconds for me to see the email and say, yeah, I'm going to do that because I love you guys.
Oh,
and
we love you, man.
So that's a negotiation. That's building a relationship. You didn't do it with the intent of asking me for something, but you built that relationship. You've provided me tremendous value in the past. And so for me, it's just natural to want to give back. And that's what negotiation is all about. Providing value, building a relationship, building trust so that the other party says, I want to give to them.
Well, thank you. That's a big compliment, Eric. I don't even know.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you, buddy.
No, thank you. Josh is getting emotional, but
I am emotional.
No, we truly appreciate you, and in any way we could give back to you and the community, especially because you've given so much, brother, over the years. Just it's countless the things that you've given, and everyone in the BP sort of ecosystem and family. We're just eternally indebted because we wouldn't be here right now all together talking if it wasn't for that creation and everything you guys have contributed. So what's on the horizon? What are you building now? I know you've bought a business. I know you're running other businesses. What are you tackling right now?
Yeah. So, so there's the real estate side of my life, and then there's the other business side of my life. I'll jump to real estate next, but on the business side, back in January, I bought and partnered with a good friend of mine on a remediation business. So fire, water, mold remediation business. And we have some big plans for that. Our goal is to we're getting ready to launch the second location of that business this month, and then hopefully by the end of the year we're going to franchise around the country. So we're really excited about that. And then yesterday we put a plumbing business under contract. There's some good synergy. There's some good synergies between the remediation business and the plumbing business.
Yeah.
We think we can do some co-marketing and basically leverage economies of scale on the marketing side. We can use it as a lead generator for us. So plumbing is kind of one of those things that went well with the remediation company. So we put one of those under contract yesterday. We've been negotiating for a while. Thank you. So yeah, we're excited I love this business thing. And to me, it's, again, I don't like fire, water, mold remediation. I don't like dealing with houses that have burned down or that have flooded. I don't like dealing with plumbing and toilets. But for me, it's not about the transactional piece. For me, it's about the business piece. And just like I said, I don't like real estate. It doesn't matter if I like plumbing and toilets and remediation. I like the business and I like the challenge. And so for me, it doesn't matter if I'm starting a restaurant, if I'm starting a shoe company, a car dealership, a plumbing company, real estate, whatever it is, the business of it is the same. And that's what I find really exciting. And that's what I encourage anybody that's out there that's looking at real estate now. If you understand the business piece, you're going to be a lot more prepared when other opportunities come along, whether it's in real estate or outside of real estate, when you understand how businesses work.
Yeah. And I bet you if I push you without any numbers or facts other than just broad categories, the acquisition of a company, does it parallel the acquisition of a piece of real estate in any way?
Everything about buying and building businesses is paralleled in real estate. There is not, if we talk about any topic of businesses for your audience, that I would start with, this is how it's analogous to real estate. And so on the buying side, yeah, what is real estate? So cash flowing real estate, what determines the value of cash flowing real estate? There are two things. There's the net operating income, or the amount of income the property is bringing in, and the cap rate. So basically the percentage return that investors expect for that type of property in that area. Those two things. If you tell me the NOI, if you tell me the operating income and the cap rate for a particular piece of property, I can tell you the value because it's a simple mathematical formula. It's cap rate, it's NOI divided by cap rate.
Yep.
Businesses are the exact same way. The value of a business is the amount of income it brings in, the amount of income the owner, the amount of benefit the owner gets from the business, divided by some cap rate. It turns out that for businesses, the cap rate is much closer to like 25 or 50% than it is 3 or 4%.
Right.
Typically you do like a 2 or 3 times multiple, maybe 3.5 times multiple. But if a business generates, let's say $100,000 a year in net income, meaning profit for the owner,
I'm doing it for us right now.
Yeah, that business is worth 2 times that, or 3 times that, or 4 times that, $200,000 to $400,000. It's the exact same thing as real estate. Anything that cash flows can be valuated by the income it generates and the return that the person buying it expects to get.
I'll let you go, Eric, because I have so many fun things.
No, I do, because I love this, and I think the audience is going to get a ton out of this, because I know I will. Agree. Can we do more connections, like the similarities between real estate investing and buying businesses, especially when it comes to the operator? Because if you have an operator that can take care of that project the way it needs to be taken care of, it's going to succeed. Same thing with buying a business, right? If you have a proper operator and someone that can manage the business for you. Yeah,
this goes back to where I said I don't like to work in real estate. I always say that if you're painting your own houses, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're painting your own houses, you're basically giving yourself a $20, $25 an hour job. And if you got into real estate either because you love painting houses or because $25 an hour is like, that's everything I want. I want $25 an hour. Then great, paint your own houses. But a lot of us got into real estate because we don't want to be painting houses first. And 2, we want to be making $100 or $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 an hour. So focus on those tasks that allow you to make $100 or $500 or $1,000 an hour. And in the business world, it's not being the plumber. Being a plumber, yeah, maybe you can make $100 an hour, but it's not going to be an easy $100 an hour. But you're probably making $50 or $60 an hour. If you're in the remediation business, we pay our technicians $20, $22, $24 an hour. So that's not going to get me the $500 an hour. The thing that gets you the $500 or $1,000 an hour is growing the business. Because again, the value of the business is the amount of profit it pulls in at the end of the day. If I can take a business, let's say remediation business, which will sell for about 2.5 times whatever income it produces. If my remediation business this year produces $100,000, that business I could probably sell for $200,000 or $250,000. If next year I put all my energy into doubling sales, keeping the same margins, and I make $200,000 instead of $1,000 or $100,000, I've now doubled the value of that business. I've made $200,000 or $250,000 in that year.
Sure.
I'm thrilled to make $250,000 in a year. I don't want to make $15 an hour. So
no, you said that so clearly. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep going. This is good.
No. So with any business owner, whether you're running a real estate business, whether you're running a more traditional business, your goal, the thing that's going to make you the most money, is increasing the income that's generated. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, your business is worth something relative to the amount of income you generate. Double the income you generate, your business is worth twice as much. And so that's your job. Your job is to make as much as possible. And that's what makes you, at the end of the day, the most money.
Sorry, Josh. I know you have something I want to add, but I wanted to highlight because Jay is in this space and he understands the opportunities now more than ever, especially
That's exactly right.
You know, with the baby boomers owning businesses that just don't have a way out. It's exactly like real estate, where it's like they want to dip their toes in the sand, but they don't have a solution, right? So they don't have heirs to pass the business to. Can you speak a little bit about that and like the opportunities now that people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, again, let's talk back to real estate. I talk to people all the time about, I wish I were investing in real estate back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, because that was the greatest opportunity in the history of this country to be investing in real estate. That's what people say. And yeah, it was a great time. It was risky, but it was a great time. And so we can't get 2008, 9, 10 back, and you can't start investing in real estate back in 2008, 9, 10 if you weren't doing it. But now we have 2020, 21, 22. Business in 2020, 21, 22, I have a feeling is going to be very similar to real estate 2008, 9, and 10. The reason is, unfortunately, it's this pandemic. So there are something like 32 million small businesses in this country. Of that 32 million small businesses, there are millions of businesses that fit into one of the following categories. Number one, business owners who are, for the last several months or years, have been thinking, my business isn't really working for me. Is now the right time to get out? But can't quite pull that trigger. I had one of those businesses back in 2015. I started a tech education business. We had patented a product to teach kids about programming and electronics. Loved the business. I mean, I had heart and soul in that business, but it didn't make a lot of money. And it took me about a year where every month I would be paying bills and saying, why am I still doing this? I should be giving up on this. But I just couldn't give up on it because I loved it so much. And finally, I just had to rip the Band-Aid off and say, this business isn't working. There are millions of business owners who were in that situation back in January and February, who may have pulled that Band-Aid off in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, but they're going to now pull that Band-Aid off right now. There's no way, if that business was failing in January or February, that they're going to, after this whole shutdown thing, that they're going to come back. So millions of businesses that are just going to kind of give up right now. Second, there are millions of business owners, like Eric said, the baby boomers who are nearing retirement. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to retire in a year or 2 or 3. At this point, they may have to spend the next year or 2 or 3 just building their businesses back up. And when you're nearing retirement, the last thing you want to do is start over. So a lot of those business owners are going to say, nope, now is just not the right time for me to start over. I'm just going to retire early. So there are millions of those businesses. Finally, there are millions of business owners who their businesses might have been doing great 3 months ago. They might be young and healthy and can want to run a business for the next 20 years. But this pandemic, this lockdown, this economic event just took everything out of them, whether it's psychologically, whether it's physically, whether it's financially. And they can't do it anymore. They either can't afford it or they don't want to. And they say, instead of starting this business up again, I'm just going to go get a job. So between these 3 categories of people, there are going to be millions of businesses that over the next year or 2 or 3 are just going to go out of business. Now, a lot of those business owners are just going to shut their doors. Now, while they may just shut their doors, again, I know this firsthand. 2015, I shut down that tech ed business. It was making money. In retrospect, I probably could have gotten high 5 figures, maybe low 6 figures for that business. Not a lot. And at the time, it just, I didn't think about it, or it just wasn't worth the effort to get some money out of it. I was so disheartened. I was so depressed about this business. I just wanted to be done. But if somebody would have come to me at that point and said, I'll give you $20K for your business. Just give me the trademark, give me the patent, give me all your systems and processes. I would have jumped at that opportunity. In fact, if they would have come to me and said, I'm not going to give you anything, but I promise that I'll keep your employees employed, I would have given them the business.
Wow.
So there are a whole lot of business owners right now that would be happy to get $10 or $20 or $50,000. Maybe they want $200,000, but they're not realistically going to get it. So they say, I'm going to owner finance it to you. So you don't have to bring a penny out of your pocket. Just give me $5,000 a month for the next 6 years or whatever it is. Then there are going to be those other business owners who say, look, just keep my employees employed and you can have my business. I just want to do what's right for them. I want to keep them employed. I want to just know that there's some continuity there. I want to keep my name on top of the door. Don't change the sign. So at least I still have my legacy. Give my kid a job so I know he's employed. Whatever it is, there's going to be plenty of business owners out there who are they're happy to hand over the keys to their business if you can promise some continuity. So to a large extent, what we're going to see over the next few years, I think, is going to be very analogous to what we saw in real estate back in 2008. Now, let's say you don't want to buy a business. Let's say you want to start a business. We had somebody on the podcast a couple of weeks ago who he was the operator of, or the owner operator of, the #1 college bar in the country. So a bar in South Carolina called Sup Dog. And he's really tied into the community. He's been voted #1 college bar in the country for the last 2 years. He knows everybody at the Restaurant Association. He was telling me that the industry talk, like the insider talk, is that up to 75% of all independent restaurants, small restaurants, may not return after this, may go out of business. So even if you just want to start a business, the fact that there's going to be such a large demand and such a small supply in a lot of areas, this is going to be a great time to kind of get in with less competition than there's been in decades.
Can I highlight this? And this is brilliant. I love this. It's like business buying 101. I'm like frothing here. It's amazing. And I love your knowledge and your experience in this. But the thing is, I liken this again to real estate, where why would I start a company from scratch, no brand, no structure, nothing, when there's something over there, a building that exists, something that I can add value to, take what they have, polish it up a little bit, right? And then just build off of what was already existing. See, to me, and then I've talked to Josh about this, what I've learned through my few years in building businesses, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to buy a business. Why don't I buy a creative agency? Why don't I buy an event planning business rather than starting it from scratch and then injecting my culture, injecting my team, adding onto their team? Because now the hard work was done, right? They already have the socials. They already have the website. They already have all the stuff that the entrepreneurs, a lot of us, get excited about. But if you can get past that and say, okay, I'm not necessarily going to build this brand from scratch. I'm going to take on someone else's passion and build the legacy. And like you said, maybe keep it just moving. And you know the things as a business owner that can improve that business and make it successful.
Again, in real estate, let's use that analogy again. We have this thing called replacement cost. So is it cheaper to buy a building to generate a certain amount of income, or 2 buildings to generate a certain amount of income, or to build ground up? At certain times in the economic cycle, it may be cheaper actually to build from the ground up. But at most points in the economic cycle, it's cheaper to just buy an existing building or 2 buildings to get the same income that you would get spending a whole lot more money building from the ground up. And same thing in the business world. There are going to be times when businesses are really expensive, and if you want to go buy a business in a certain industry, you're going to have to pay 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times the income of that business. But for most points in the economic cycle, businesses are relatively cheap, and it's a lot cheaper, a lot easier to start a business in an existing industry than it is to or to buy a business in an existing industry than it is to start one yourself. Now, if you're starting a tech company and there's no existing business in that industry, you're doing something innovative, then by all means, you have to start your own business, raise capital. But if you're going to buy a restaurant, a plumbing business, a cabinet business, a car dealership, you can buy one of these things for a whole lot less than what you're going to spend building it from scratch.
And I want to also highlight here, because I learned this with Josh as we went through our master course or class about this, is it just like real estate, there's so many similarities, is that you could do owner or seller financing, right? No money out of pocket buying a business.
Absolutely. The deal we negotiated yesterday. So basically we negotiated a price that we're putting about a quarter of the price down. He's seller financing the rest over 2 years. Based on the cash flow projections, we think that we'll be able to pay him out of the cash flow. So it'll be no money out of our pocket for that 2 years. And the value of the business, it's coming with a whole bunch of assets, trucks and tools. And,
nice.
and so we negotiate a price that's essentially one times last year's net income. So basically, in theory, I don't expect this year to be as good as last year because of the whole virus thing. But in theory, if this year generated as much income as last year, that business has paid for itself in 1 year. So in real estate terms, what is that? That's 100% cap rate.
Yeah.
That's paying for itself in 1 year. Even if business cuts in half and it takes 2 years, that's the equivalent to 50% cap rate.
It's incredible. Now, I have a friend named Ryan Ank, and he created a book that you could have done too, where it talks about how give him 7 days with just ingenuity or human capital, we call it, and he could start a business.
Absolutely.
So let's go and put Jay Scott with his wisdom of today, but without any cash. And you were convicted, and as you and I are, and Eric, that there are businesses available today, and they're in different buckets. I want out, whatever. The I want out people are similar to the Jay Scott 8 years ago, where they may just lock the doors, right? Oh, so how do you stop them from locking the door and tell them you'll buy it when they don't even know you'll buy it and you don't know that they hate the business? How do you find them?
Okay, so can I use the real estate analogy again, because it's all analogous to real estate? How do you acquire businesses? Well, how do you acquire real estate? There are essentially two ways. There's on market and there's off market. And on market is basically buying publicly available businesses or real estate. How do we do that? Typically, we do it by going on the MLS. Right. Well, most people don't know this, but in most cities, there is the equivalent to the MLS for businesses. There is a business MLS. In fact, in Florida, this is interesting. It's not in many states, but Florida is one of those states where I live, where if you're a real estate broker, you're also licensed to be a business broker.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it's again, the analogy is so clear there. Yeah. But there are these business MLSs, and there are people called business brokers out there who have access to these business MLSs. Do a search in your city or your state or your county and just do a search for business broker. A bunch of names will come up. Call one of them and just say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a business. Here's what I'm looking for. This is about how much money I want to spend. This is the industry I'm looking for. Here's my experience. Here's how much I have to put down. Here's what my credit looks like if I want to get a loan. And they'll basically go through their MLS. They can even set up a feed just like real estate agents can that will automatically send you businesses. And you can look through those businesses. The listing looks just like an MLS listing. And if you have a question about something, you go to the broker, you say, hey, I want more information about this business. You sign an NDA. They send you the financials. They send you all the information. And it's very much like real estate. In fact, if you like the business, you say to the broker, I'd love to set up an on-site visit. You go and you visit the property. You see you meet the owner maybe, or you at least get a tour of the business. You get to ask questions. So that's the on market. Again, just like real estate. And just like real estate, if you're going to buy something on market, there's a lot of competition. Everybody's talking to these brokers. Everybody's looking for these businesses. So you may find a good deal there, especially these days. Just like 2008, I found most of my deals between 2008 and 11 on the MLS. There were just so many foreclosures that it was easy to find stuff on the MLS. There was no reason to do off market. I have a feeling it's going to be like that with businesses in the very near future. There's going to be so many businesses for sale that even going on the the business brokerages, you're going to find a lot of on-market stuff. But typically those deals are going to be not as good because you have a lot of competition. Everybody's talking to those brokers. So that brings us to the off-market way of finding deals. And again, just like in real estate, there are a number of off-market ways of finding deals. I know a lot of people that literally just send direct mail. They'll send a letter saying, hey, I just moved down to this area, or I'm looking to open up a plumbing business.
Okay.
I noticed that you have a plumbing business. I was wondering if you've ever thought about selling. If you're considering selling, give me a call. And just like you do lead generation in real estate, maybe that business owner, maybe 1% or 2% are going to pick up the phone and call you. You talk to them and you try and negotiate a deal. Now, maybe you don't want to do direct mail, just like real estate. You could do cold calling. I mean, you can literally pick up the phone and say, hey, can I talk to the owner of the business? Hey, I'm looking for a plumbing company in this area. I noticed that you guys have a great reputation. You've been in business for a while. I was just wondering, have you thought about selling? Do you know any other plumbers in the area that are looking to kind of exit the business right now, looking to retire? Can you give me a referral? And all it takes is one to say, yeah, actually, I have thought about selling the business. Let's talk. Door knocking. I mean, you can literally, we walk into businesses. I'm sure the three of us have probably, well, before this pandemic, probably walk into dozens of businesses a week. Well, when you walk into those businesses, instead of just buying something, look around. And if it's a business you might be interested, just say, hey, is the owner here? And just say, I like what you got here. I'm looking to start something similar. Are you looking to sell? Or maybe you know somebody else that has a similar business that might be looking to sell. Here's my card. And it's networking. And it's just like real estate. When somebody says to you, how do you find real estate deals? It's either on market or off market, and same with businesses.
I love what it's so brilliant. Oh my God, mind blowing. And I just want to highlight something that you said there, because when you walk in and when everything gets back to whatever the new normal is, walking into someone's business and saying, hey, I want to buy you could be very offensive. And Josh and I learned this, right? So you want to be sensitive to those folks. So as Jay said, you could approach it like, hey, I'm looking to purchase or partner in a business like this. And then now they're not seeing it as you taking over their business. They're seeing it like, oh, partnership. Oh, what about me? You interested in me? You know, it just starts the conversation different.
I'm looking to buy a house in this neighborhood. Do you know of anybody that might be looking to sell?
It's exactly the same.
So similar.
Yeah,
Jay,
good.
You have been so generous. I think we wanted to get into so many cool things, but you shared with our audience why we knew this would add value. You brought the value, buddy. Maybe someday we'll be able to get you back in. I know you have a tight schedule.
Anytime.
I'm excited about the next time. Also, there's so many other things I want to talk to you about, but your future launch of a franchise. I love how you're doing it right. You know, you methodically are moving through. You researched. I know your story, so you researched for a while. You decided it's going to be remediation because it has so many of the expertise that you already built in other industries. And you also know it's recession resistant. It's extremely recession resistant. It just takes energy and effort to get the connection to the insurance companies and all those types of things. And then you're going to eventually franchise it. But first, you're proving the model yourself, and you're doing your due diligence. And I love how methodical you're going about it. By the way, another similarity between you and I was 10, 12 years ago. I was building fancy houses for other people, wealthy people. And the guy who wanted to buy a $7 million house from us, and I was going to be the project lead, it was a young guy. He was like 42. I'm like, how do you own a $7 million house? And he goes, oh, you know what? I didn't franchise. I created it was like a franchise of a cleaning company. And it blew my mind. And that's what led me down the path 2 years later to buy my first franchise. I bought a franchise. And that's my big failure story. My big learning lesson was I bought a franchise that didn't work out. So I'm really glad you're doing it the right way.
Don't be on that side of the equation.
No, yeah.
Be on the other side. To create the franchise.
Yeah. Yes, which well, you should have seen my business plan. I named the LLC the group franchise, whatever. We were in the middle. I said to the guys when I was buying their franchise, which was a restaurant fire protection cleaning service. So it was very specific, anti-recession resistant. I said, I'm doing this because I want to learn and become a franchisor. But anyway, bottom line is so many similarities to where you're going with this. I'm so proud of you. I can't wait to have you come back on and talk about that. By the way, would you tease it out the name? What's the name of that franchise you're building?
It's called Ameridry, Ameridry.
Love the name. And cool. As Eric and I say, it's a name that sounds like you've heard it before, which is what I like when launching new ventures. we just want to give you one last little, message to the audience. I know everybody probably knows how to reach you, and the best is probably through your podcast, correct?
So I hope people will check out the podcast. If you're into real estate or business, I mean, it's business focused, but again, as real estate investors, you will get a whole lot out of this podcast. And I need to tease one episode. Last week's episode
Good.
51 of the Bigger Pockets Business Podcast, we had a guy named Nigel Geisinger on, and he's a real estate investor that kind of branched out into business. And his strategy is essentially buying businesses that own the underlying real estate.
Yes.
So buy an auto mechanic shop that owns the land that the shop sits on. Build up the business, sell off the business, keep the land. And you're basically a real estate investor. You're making money on the business, but now whoever buys the business, they're now your tenant. And you can even sell or finance the business. So you're going to get paid. If you don't, you get the business back and you still own the real estate. So it's a brilliant strategy. Nigel is just a fantastic episode. So anybody that wants to check out the business podcast, episode 51. So and then my message to everybody out there, I know this is a tough time that we're all in. I know there are a lot of people who are struggling. Then there are people who aren't necessarily struggling, but they're a little confused about what they should be doing right now. I know we didn't get to that today. But my suggestion to anybody out there that's trying to figure out what to do right now, be patient. So I know all of us, after sitting at home for the last 2 months, we're reading Facebook and we see people are buying businesses and they're buying apartment buildings and they're buying houses. And the rest of us are sitting there thinking, I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting here, and they feel like they need to take action. They need to do something right now. At this point in the economic cycle, with this particular event that's going on, you don't necessarily need to be doing anything. Nobody is going to fault you because you're not out there buying an apartment building or buying a business. What I suggest to everybody that's out there who isn't comfortable buying right now, because right now, this minute, for the next until this lockdown ends, it's a risky time to be buying. But what you can be doing is you can be listening to every past episode of Capital Hacking. You can be listening to every last episode of the Bigger Pockets Business Podcast. You can be going back and reading books. You can be talking to friends and potential partners on the phone. You can be creating a business plan. Now is the perfect time to be learning, because at some point in the very near future, whether it's 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now or 6 months from now, at some point in the very near future, I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of great opportunities. Now's the time to be preparing for those opportunities.
Woo!
I love it.
Thank you for that. And as you said, you're not all about motivation. You're about inspiration. No, that wasn't inspiring. I was sitting here watching Eric put you as the big screen, and I'm like, I'm ready to run through a wall. It was like my William Wallace moment. Freedom! Anyway, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you on Bigger Pockets Business.
We love you, brother.
We love your show.
Thanks, guys. Love you guys.
Take it easy, man.